on Watches TV, and today we're going to talk GPHG 2024, and we're going to do so with our good friend Gianfranco Richel, who's a watch expert and a famous trainer, and maybe some of you guys have already suffered what he's known for, but he's actually very good at it. So anyhow, we're going to talk about some of the categories. We won't go over all of them. And also a little side thing is that we're both member of the jury this year, so we won't give too much of the our own appreciation of the watches that we're going to talk about, but it'll be a bit more descriptive, I would say. And then if you guys want to interpret the way we talk about them, well, that's up to you. So we're going to start with the first category, and actually this is a new category.
Absolutely. A new and a really interesting one, because we spoke a lot about complication in the last years, and now we are getting back to nicer, elegant, pure watches, and this category speaks for itself. Time only. Solo tempo, like we say in Italian.
Sounds nice. So yeah, with this category, we're going really to the essence of watchmaking, hour, minute, sometimes seconds. And the goal is to be in a certain way as, well, pure and refined as possible. I guess.
Just the strict necessary. Time and nothing else. So that's focused more to beauty, elegance, balance, contrast instead of complication. I love it. I love it.
But we'll talk about complications in a little short while, don't worry. So, talking about the 6 watches that are participating in this year's first prize for time only, and I hope this category will remain for sure. So, we have an interesting shaped watch from Berneron. And oh yeah, something else that I want to say is that we're going to keep it quite short, because we're going to talk about 6 categories and we don't want to spend 3 hours with you guys. It's not that we don't like to do that, but we try to be a little bit concise. Anyhow, let's start. So first watch in the time-only category is the Berneron. Sylvain Berneron is a designer, and it's his very first watch, and he decided, well, kind of done enough round watches. Let's do something a little bit different. So this watch not only is the case shaped very differently than what we're
organically, we say.
Absolutely, but the movement also is taking the shape, and every component, I would say, in this watch has this kind of philosophy.
Yeah, the bridges, the components, the dial, the case, but also the global movement. That's funny. Not just few components, but everything. Looks like coming out from an oven. Heaten too much, but no, that's much more than that. It's inspired by Salvador Dali, perhaps.
Yeah, there's a little something, of course, and I mean the position of the crown isn't there by chance. I mean, he wanted it a little bit also asymmetric. I mean, everything has been thought of. I mean, he spent a lot of time on this process, and actually he's enjoying quite a lot of success with it.
Interesting to see how most of the people starts with a round watch, and the other watches in this category are round, but it looks round, but it's really more original than just round.
Completely different. Okay, the second watch comes from Mr. Bernard Lederer, and this has I mean, most of the highlight, I would say, is on the chronometrical aspect, the movement aspect.
Yeah, the accuracy. 3 times. That's one of the rare watches which has not only 1 certification of chronometry, but 3 certifications in the same watch. Funny to see how it spreads out precision, it spreads out accuracy, because the movement, I think it needs 1 hour to understand what Mr. Lederer put it in this movement to enhance the accuracy of this escapement system. Fantastic, just to hear him to speak about it, I was fascinated to discover.
Yeah, I mean, he's very deep into it. That's to say the least. Yeah.
But did you see the numerals on the small dial? This reminds the location, the coordinates of the 3 certification institutes: the COSC, the Besançon
Observatory
certification, and the third one is the Glashütte one. Yes, which are reminded on the little dial. Nice touch.
Nice little touch indeed, and very subtle. I mean, you really have to look for it. Third watch, this one is Qualité Fleurier, and we'll come back once on this watch certification process because it's really one of the most, well, it is the most cumbersome certification that exists. It's
Good if you will speak more about it.
Yes.
I'm waiting that
Yeah,
because
no.
no one knows it, and that's so beautifully done. And yeah, it's worth to know more about it.
Yeah, and actually I own a piece that is qualified by this Qualité Fleurier, and the performance of the watch is just unbelievable. But we'll get back on this. So let's talk about this LUC, this Chopard watch, the LUC Qualité Fleurier. It's very, let's say, pure, elegant, has obviously a very beautiful movement, very well finished, obviously very precise. But in terms of design, I mean, there's something that is quite minimalist, I would say, with this piece.
Minimalist, but not the modern minimalist. I would say more the 60 years with this beautiful hand matching perfectly the indexes and the case design, well done. Really, everything corresponds to this epoch in a beautiful stylistic way.
Yeah, and it's in a steel case. The steel also has special provenance, something that is quite dear for them.
Which is one of the specialties of the brand,
Yeah.
not only related to gold, but also steel, where the steel it's also controlled and in a kind of transparent process to make steel, let's say, traceable and sustainable.
Sustainable steel in a certain way, yeah. So the fourth watch comes from Czapek, and here we have hour, minute, and a small second indicator. And what's interesting is obviously where this small second indicator is, because around it you have this really quite astonishing, visual effect with a very special dial. And I mean, it's already nice on pictures, but when you see it in real, I mean, it's even different.
You have to play with the light, right? And it's funny because we were expecting from Czapek something more sport chic, bracelet in metal, but that's really the puristic approach, round case. And as you said, when you play with the light, it really reminds the name of the watch is.
The name of the watch is Goutte d'eau.
So that speaks
Water
for
drop.
itself. It's really good name.
Yeah.
Because
And
it's.
You feel like you're kind of soaked in the watch.
True.
That has really kind of like a 3D effect that is absolutely surprising when you see it in real.
And then you said it, right? It's enamel.
Yeah.
The different layers of enamel, the thickness of the enamel makes this graduation of color. That's also craftsmanship, but in a modern way.
Yeah.
Never made before, as I know.
Interesting. Fifth watch from H. Moser, and this comes now. This is the Streamliner. Small seconds, blue dial, again with a very special dial. We all know the Streamliner, but this dial is obviously quite something.
One of the trends of this year, a lot of enamel dial, people relaunching this traditional technique, but in a more modern way. And this, in fact, if I remember well, it's 12 layers because you have this graduation between the clear color, blue color in the center to the darker one. Mm-hmm. So different layers creates the depth and the darkness of the blue.
Yeah.
I love the approach in a modern design case. It's a beautiful combination in just hour, minutes, and small second.
Small second.
But a generous small second. It's
Yeah.
really, it's a statement
And-
of precision.
And this one is a bit smaller than the Streamliner we're used to, and the Grenet effect, indeed, of the dial is really, again, unfortunately, it's better when you see it in real. Yeah. So the sixth watch comes from Parmigiani Fleurier with Tonda micro rotor, no date. That's the name of it. And this one is actually, goes to the purest of what a time-only watch is. Hours and minutes, and that's it. But it's quite a brilliant watch in terms of how it just looks nice, I would say.
You said no date. Is it really the name of the watch?
Yeah,
Serious?
yeah, it's kind of.
Well, that speaks loud about what is the message. Just
Well, they
hour
could have
and
gone
minutes.
no date, no small seconds.
Could be a good idea. No, but here you truly recognize the style of Guido Tereni, the CEO, relaunch a new brand, redesigning everything, and this dial. It's so beautiful. This little pattern of the guilloche dial, I love it. It's really fabulous in craftsmanship, but also the global aspect, which is, I love it because hour, minutes, nothing else, even no date.
No date, yeah. So we'll jump to the next category. And we'll talk complications. And we'll start with the man's complication, but ladies' complication is to come. So first, in the man's complication, and there are a variety of interpretation of what a complication can be, actually. Sometimes it can be on the more on the mechanical side, sometimes it's more on the kind of animation side. But so we'll start with Artia, who's coming with his first central tourbillon. This time coming in a sapphire case, something that is quite dear to him. I mean, he's making a lot of them, generally in funky colors, sometimes changing funky colors. But this one is just a pure, transparent sapphire case with a rather large central tourbillon.
Yeah, highlighting even this tourbillon like a piece of art. I would say a kinetic piece of art because really centered like a picture moving on your wrist. I love it. And just one color highlighting this central tourbillon. Lovely.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
And you have hour and minute hands that are peripheral that you can see really, I mean, just on the side. And it's, so it really, I mean, the highlight is indeed the tourbillon there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So next watch comes from Bern called Mecca. This one is quite hardcore in a certain way, if you see what I mean in terms of kind of brutal the design. It looks, there's like an industrial dimension to it. But here the funky part is indeed in its display system and some quite interesting and original
way to display the time,
yeah,
right? With this cube rotating every
24 hours.
24 hours,
Every
right?
24
so
hours.
you have different way to show in Arabic numerals. You can put Roman numerals. They're different, right?
Yeah.
I remember I was surprised because, in fact, seeing that this, it looks like it's not finished. But no, yeah, as I said, it's a more brutal way to show the mechanic. The name says it all. Yeah. It's a mechanic. We can see it. But you know, when I saw it the first time, this brand, I was more surprised about the design of the case than the complication alone. Both are good, but the design of the case, not bombed like this, but convex like this, and it plays with light completely different. So why not having something mechanical, brutal, like you said, but with an aesthetic which is completely different than a normal watch?
Yeah. And so, I mean, it could be a time only also because we only have like hour and minute on this one.
Could be, but that's a complication
Yeah, there
in
is.
dialing
Just joking,
the
yeah.
time, so it's already a complication in my spirit at least.
So this brand came along just a few years ago.
I think 3 years.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So then they're really, I mean, their DNA is really playing indeed with those cubes, changing every 24 hours. So next watch is much more classical. It's something that in a certain way we've already seen, but it's a different execution, and it comes from Chopard. This is the LUC Strike 1, and this is a chiming watch, chiming on the hour watch, a mechanic that you can have on or off if you don't want your watch to chime every hour. And it's a simple ding. It's not chiming the number of...
Just one tonality.
Just one tonality.
If you don't want this stress, you can switch it off, right?
Exactly, exactly, yes. So you have a little indicator when at 12 o'clock with a little dot there, white or black, that will show in which mode you're in. But even if you have it on, I mean, it's very kind of a discreet little ding. And it's a special ding because the sound is quite something with all those watches from Chopard LUC with their very special sapphire gong system, which makes very pure and, I mean, different. I mean, they won the Aiguille d'Or with
just
it.
a pure tone, like you said. I remember when you heard it the first time. I think I would be frustrated with this one because you just hear it once an hour. But once you hear it, you would like to hear it a few times. It's so clear, so crystal clear. It's fantastic from the acoustic.
Yeah,
really.
no.
The hammer strikes the gong, and the gong is connected in one piece with the sapphire crystal, right? That makes this crystal clear sound.
Yeah. So this piece again, quite very classical. You do see the hammer at between 12 and 1, so it's a nice little feature. And I guess if you have this watch, you're just waiting for it to
exactly
work. And with a very beautiful dial with this kind of guilloche with this kind of how the nid d'abeille, like kind of
cubes or nid d'abeille. Yeah, it's more nid d'abeille. Yeah.
So nice one. Fourth piece, okay, this one is kind of a, let's say, this is like a heavy-duty piece from De Bethune with the kind of grand complication. So they have a few models with this name, kind of. Well, it's quite, find it quite funny actually. And this one is a two-faced watch. It's really cool because, I mean, you just really have two different watches on your wrist. I mean, they're very different, much more modern interpretation, a bit futuristic, a bit sci-fi like they like to do, and a much more classical face.
Completely different look, absolutely. And this blue, this dark blue, this cobalt blue, so typical from the brand, highlighting the perpetual calendar and the stars in the sky. I love this idea of this beautiful blue and these stars.
Yeah, and sometimes with watches where you have the crown that's at 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock, depending on which side of the watch is, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to play with the crown because you don't have much space between the bracelet and the case. And here, since you can, flip it around, you just use it when, it's very easy to use. Actually, it's quite one of the nice perks of having such a construction, and obviously the floating lugs, so that will adapt very nicely.
That's so comfortable.
Yeah,
That's really something which is amazing. Once you have it in your wrist, you can really feel it with your hand, and on the wrist, it's just organically a pleasure.
Absolutely, it has this kind of little pebble sensation. It's absolutely good. Yeah, we like it. Next watch comes from Frank Muller with quite interesting design, I would say, with an interesting feature. I mean, it's a jumping hour, jumping minutes, so that's nothing new in a certain way. But the way it's
in a vertical position
yeah.
and visible everything.
Yeah.
And it's not bombed like convex. It's square.
Yeah.
Completely different. No, not completely different. It reminds a little bit the origin of the brand, but in a much more strict, modern, I would say, no, I cannot say Art Deco, but in a more geometrical way. I love it. It's surprised. And did you see the color? The green color and the black color matches quite well.
Yeah.
Without having a green dial, you play with the two tonality. I love it.
And it has a little, like you mentioned, it has a modern feel to it because you see, for instance, on the dial there is those small little inscriptions with little kind of arrows almost pointing to places. It's a little, I don't know, there's almost not an electronic feel, but there's something a bit different, quite modern,
You
quite
mean
technical.
the instruction integrated in the
Yeah.
aspect of the watch.
And then in the bottom part of the watch, you actually have the date indicator, obviously also jumping. Reason why it's called the Long Island Evolution Master Jumper. All right, next watch, and this is going to be a little bit more complicated for us, perhaps, to come on. But this watch comes from Mr. Kazuo.
Why complicated?
No, it's not complicated, but it's just like...
You remember the story of Louis Cotier?
Of course.
Developing the idea of his father.
Yes.
And he fulfilled it, he finished his idea, and 2 or 3 brands took this idea, famous brand, and they went quite famous with this complication. So
Definitely.
now it's looking quite similar to the original old-timer developed by Louis Cotier.
Yeah. So this watch, like I said, comes from Kazuo Maeda. It's called Heure Universelle, which speaks for itself, indeed. It's made out of tantalum, which is a material that we don't see that often. I mean, it's a hard material to machine.
Absolutely.
So obviously that's one of the reasons that we don't see it that much. So coming back on, we're through with the man's complication.
Absolutely.
So let's go to the ladies' complication. I just have to find quickly where this is on.
Even if the
There we
barrier,
go.
it's quite tiny between man's complication and ladies' complication.
Yeah.
We don't put a straight line, right?
Yeah,
Today.
well, that indeed. I mean, this kind of gender division is sometimes not so relevant in a certain way. We have one watch here that will exemplify this absolutely perfectly. So, in the ladies' complication, before going into the details, I would say that most of the watches that are in this category, in a certain way, we've seen them before.
let's say they're inspired by something.
Yes.
There is a kind of continuity.
Yeah.
Let's say it like this.
Okay, all right. He's being more politically correct than I am. But nonetheless, I mean, it's beautiful executions, and let's jump into details. So, indeed, with the Anderson Genève, in collaboration with BCHH from Singapore, this is a timepiece also universal. This piece has, there are versions that are a bit more manly, but it's basically the same piece.
Depending on the craftsmanship
Yeah.
he applied,
Yeah.
could be a guilloche, could be enameling, could be painted. But here we have something new.
Yes, and again, the balance of this watch is really, is very refined, I think. Everything is really nice. It has a very small crown, so it makes it sometimes, it could be a little bit more complicated to use, but you can pull it out quite nicely. And it's just very classic, very nice.
An
And
invitation to dream, to travel.
yeah, and it has like a special dial with special, I don't know exactly what artistic crafts are used on it, but it's, you have like, it seems like an enamel.
Looks like enameling.
Yeah, yeah. All right, next watch from Chaumet, the Swing. This is, yeah, it's new, okay. It's a tourbillon watch, fully paved, of course, showcasing high craftsmanship in terms of gem setting, and also, I mean, it's kind of opened up in a certain way. It's quite big. It's quite a large watch for, I would say.
Large watch, large flying tourbillon, which is a little bit hidden of this
Yeah.
rotating components, which means it doesn't show the technique, but the beauty of the tourbillon integrated in this beautiful diamond set dial.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Next piece, and we'll talk about Fabergé. This is also a piece that used to be known as the Peacock at one point.
Right.
Yeah. And it's also has kind of uses a retrograde system to showcase the case, but coupled with, that's for the minutes, and coupled with
This peripheral
yeah.
rotating disc dial, which has the reference to read the time at 3 at the crown. Is that correct? And the wings of the butterfly
indicate
show the minutes
exactly. Yes.
on passing time, not on request, but permanently.
Yeah, exactly. So the wings, they kind of deploy themselves over the hour, and once it's you reach the 60-minute mark,
It goes back.
back, and there it goes again. While the hour is kind of trailing gently on the periphery, like you mentioned, of this piece. Again, showcasing nice craftsmanship.
Mother of pearl dial, and lacquering all moving components.
All right, next piece from Louis Vuitton, who work generally with our friends from Atelier du Temps. This is a jumping hour mechanism. Quite funky, I would say.
Yeah, it's nearly a tradition now, because
Yeah.
since a few years the Atelier offers us some complication, moving complication, one more original than the other one, and this year a little bit more poetical, more dreamful.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, fun and not,
Yeah,
in a certain way, not too serious. It's quite funky, I think. It's,
We need a little bit more fun and
yeah.
humor in our watches industry.
So this piece also, I mean, you have like for the minute hand, it's like also one of these flower that is going around. Sometimes a little bit complicated to see precisely the difference between the dial itself and the hand.
But we at least have the hour clearly.
Yeah, okay, exactly. All right, next piece from Trilobe with this, I'm going to say its full name, The Exquisite Hour Secret. But it is a unique piece.
And don't look for the hands, you understood it, because the humanity was inspired by the universe, by the rotating planet, by the orbits to understand the passing time. So they follow the philosophy of no hands, but rotating elements like orbits of planets. But this year they added newly the moon, and even the double moon. So that's the first complication they added to the new way to depict the time.
Yeah.
Love the idea, because it looks really like the universe having the moon.
And on some of Trilobe's watches, you would see the second. Here you don't see the second, but you still have something that is moving quite fast indeed, with this kind of the sky that is above the moon that you were just mentioning, that is rotating on this kind of sapphire disk where you see those stars moving around. Exactly. It's a nice little feature, or I don't know how to say, emotion.
Instead of being on the balcony tonight,
Yeah.
you can have it on your
You
roof.
can have it like that. All right, next piece, and this is, I mean, typical Van Cleef and Arpels,
for sure.
but this is a nice piece, I would say. It's also a retrograde mechanism. Well, I'll let you talk about this one.
Once again, Van Cleef Arpels surprises us, not with the watch, but with the story.
Yeah.
And then I love the idea of developing at first the story, and then we develop the watch after it. And once again, yeah, it's a nature. The nature, like in the morning, could be, and you have beautiful flowers. You have the butterfly showing you the time on this retrograde scale. And the funny point is,
Yes.
after 12 hours, the other butterfly takes the next 12 hours. But you can simulate what happens during the day, pushing the button at 7, and it simulates the wind on the grass, on the flowers. So the flower begins to move during few seconds. The butterflies cannot show the time anymore. They fly around during 10 seconds, and after that, they show you the time again.
Yeah.
Is that not beautiful?
And again, I mean, plenty of craftsmanship in
Yeah,
this
of course.
piece, whether on the gem setting side or the dial itself, because everything is kind of in, there's dimension, there's volume in here. And nothing is just
Right.
simply flat. I mean, there are things happening, and something that, I mean, is even more so apparent when we're going to talk about the artistic craftsmanship category.
Don't forget, we also have interactivity on this watch.
That's
That's the funny point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is absolutely true. So let's talk now chronographs, because I mean, personally, I like chronographs, but.
Time and timekeeping.
All right. So we have in the chronograph category very different approaches, I would say, to this notion of a
Radically.
chronograph watch. And I mean, starting with the Angelus instrument de vitesse, a very, I mean, I would say elegant, pure. There's a bit of nostalgia in this watch.
But look at just on the indexes.
Yeah.
That speaks loud about the epoch, the style, in fact, even matching perfectly the same style of hands.
Yeah,
But interesting, it's a chronograph, right? But
That
no
is-
counters.
that is correct.
That makes it different than other counters. Even though we have the tachymeter scale around it, it makes it a little bit more technical, but not like a normal chronograph.
No, and it's a monopusher chronograph, so you on, I mean, on, off, and reset on with the same pusher, but indeed no sub dial. So I mean, it's in a certain way of displaying if you want to see the second running or not. Besides, if you want to use indeed the tachymeter scale to calculate.
Old-timer
Yes.
style, right?
Yeah.
And the beautiful mechanical movement visible from the back, typically from Angelus.
Absolutely. Next piece is the Louis Vuitton by and or in collaboration with Recepi, our little neighbor over there. And this is quite a, phenomenal, it's quite a crazy watch, I would say, not only in terms of what it does, but also in terms of what it looks. because
Explain
it's
me
pretty
this
big.
watch. I didn't see it myself.
Okay, so this piece, I mean, okay, you have time only on the front side. You have indeed this translucent fumé dial, which lets you see part of its movement and the complexity, obviously, that is behind. And well, as you can see at more or less 2 o'clock. Well, at 2 o'clock you have the chrono pusher. So, but the chrono aspect you don't see on the front side. You see it on the back side. Yeah. And not only does it measure time, obviously the seconds, the running minutes, but then you have a little very funky function when you reset your piece. The hands of your chrono go in a certain way, completely crazy, completely mad, and they just swirl around in complete crazy speeds, yes, and they go back to their position, but at the same time, while doing that, you have a little chiming mechanism. Well, not chiming. It's like more like an alarm system. You know, it goes drrrring like this. You know, like in the cricket
Sure.
from Vulcan. There's a bit of this kind of sound. I personally, I don't understand. I don't need to understand why it exists, but I find it mechanically must be quite complex. Another mechanical side of complexity of this piece is that obviously on one side you have the hands rotating, in a clockwise way, but then if you want this to be also clockwise on the other side,
Yeah.
well, you have to invert
course.
the mechanical
It's a
information.
challenge.
Yeah.
We'll ask your neighbor afterwards to tell us much more about this watch. I'm really curious to know.
Yeah, no, it's quite it's odd, I would say, but we like it. So and its name, so it's a chronographe à sonnerie. All right, says it all. All right, next piece comes from Masséna Lab, chronograph monopoussoir, done in collaboration with our good friend Sylvain Pinault, and this is. I mean, it's a nice piece. I mean, you have a large central second hands that you activate indeed with the monopusher, and it's just there's something very like an homage to traditional watchmaking with this piece, with a bit of modernity, of course, at the same time, and it's well balanced. I mean, it's to see all this mechanical aspect of actually the chronograph mechanism from the top of it.
I love your word, an homage to chronograph. I love it. In fact, because it celebrates the spirit of measuring the time, showing the lower part with the component of the chronograph, of centering the dial. It's a good architectural design to celebrate a monopusher chronograph.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. So okay, it's obviously really, very limited series. I mean, practically all these watches are quite small in terms of production volumes.
A lot of pieces are limited this year, I've seen, in fact.
Yeah. So yeah, nice piece, and we like both of these guys. Next, Parmigiani Fleury. This is again, it's not something completely new. Let's be honest. But it's obviously a nice piece, a nice movement. It's a fully integrated chronograph, something that it took them years to develop at the time.
A split-second chronograph.
And it's a split-second chronograph, correct. So,
which, as you said, it's not really new, but the look of the watch is new.
Yeah.
I remember on the watches fairs or the Watches and Wonder was shown in the window with the 3 different models with the same color tonality, and we have a closer look on the dial, which has the 3 counters, not contrasting strongly with the dial, but being tone in tone. And that gives this kind of elegant touch for a high-end complication like a split-second chronograph.
Absolutely. And you do have a bit of a kind of a traditional feel to it, especially when you look at the movement side. I mean, it's very finely decorated. And one of the features that I personally appreciate, indeed, coming back to the sub-counters, is that they're quite eccentered. It's like sometimes on some of those chronos, I think it's just a little bit too packed in the middle. And here it's really, you have space. And those sub-counters are actually pretty big, meaning that, the hands of the sub-counters are also pretty big, and it makes it much more legible in a certain way. And coming back also to the shape of the case with this gaudron, which is used on the bezel, gives it a very, very elegant feel to it. It's not a small watch per se, okay? No. It's quite big.
But it's softly rounded. Yeah. Even the side is softly rounded. Even if you touch it, you will feel how smooth everything is. I love this idea of still having the tactile sensations in touching the watches, and that's really a good example for it.
Yeah, and nice texture of the dial. Nice execution. Next piece is the Tag Heuer Monaco split-second chronograph, a piece that was introduced at Watches and Wonder with, they made quite a lot of noise about this one.
It's a powerful watch. It needs noise, it needs visibility, it's a testosterone watch. And that's a high-end complication. Come on, it's a split-second chronograph again.
Again, exactly. But I'll get back. No, I will quickly come back on the Parmigiani. So you have the pushers on, off, on top, reset, and the split second you activated on the crown. Okay. It's integrated in the crown.
Integrated pusher in the crown.
In the crown for the split second function. Okay, let's go back to the Tag Heuer. Whereas here the start stop is classic and reset classic, and the split second is actually on the other side, which is actually quite practical in a certain way because you can really so this watch it took them quite a lot of development. They worked with Vaucher to do it. On the design perspective, something that I do like is really on the case back actually is to have this kind of large square sapphire that is really showcasing the entire
Covering
movement.
all the square,
Yes.
not just the round movement like they made in the past,
Yes.
you're meaning?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, no, that has a nice feel to it, I would say, and it was one way for TAG to say, okay, we want to go back and play in the league of
Performance.
yeah, and the big league because it's not a cheap watch. All right, next watch, still in the LVMH Galaxy.
Looks like El Primero.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe we've seen it a little bit before, who knows. So this is the Chronomaster original triple calendar. So it's not only a chronograph, indeed, you have a triple calendar. You see the month, of course, the day and date. But this watch, one of the particularity is that it's not, I mean, the central second hand is moving quite fast.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, it shows the hundredths of a second.
I think I can't remember now.
We should try, huh?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to do our
Let's
homework
try
a bit more.
to
Yeah.
play with, but at least it has a high frequency.
Well,
beating
that,
heart inside.
of course, yeah. And so, indeed, that central second, I mean, is running really, really fast. I don't know. I guess I don't know how long it takes actually to do a full turn. Well, no, it takes 1 second.
10 seconds.
10 Yeah, I'm getting there.
If I'm not wrong.
Okay, super professional, guys. Okay, and this piece is a little bit smaller than from of the Zenith
Yeah,
piece.
typically
You've
the
seen this?
bezel, it's quite tiny, right?
Yeah,
There
yes.
is nearly no metal between the dial on the left side, on the opposite side of the crown, between the dial and the case. That makes it quite generous in the size, but not big in the volume.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, we try to catch back from the situation. So let's talk now a heavy-duty category. No, let's talk art. And
Métier d'art.
yeah,
I would
then
say in
and then
French.
we'll end going to the moon. But first, let's talk métier d'art and artistic craft. Something that is obviously very important for the watch industry. It's a nice way of showcasing what all those fabulous artisans are capable of doing.
Absolutely. And mostly we speak about colors, shades, and everything, but I think you want to start with something which is not colorful.
No, exactly. Because this is just, so it's the Anderson Genève with the jumping hour, black jade stone. And this piece is I think as pure as you can get, basically. You know,
The hour indicator with jumping hour and a small second elegantly at 6, nothing else.
Yeah.
And the natural black color of a jade stone, la classe.
And this jade stone, I mean, I guess, I don't know if some of you guys might have seen, you know, with H. Moser, the Aventa Black dial.
Yeah.
Which has really kind of a strange visual effect because it's like, oh, what's going on? But here with a natural element, with a jade stone, I felt a little bit this kind of the same emotion. There was something that is really like well, I don't know, like a black hole that is just
I was thinking about the black hole jumping in.
yeah. No, it's really there's something magnetic about this dial, and the combination of gray shades and
The yellow touch. Did
the
you
yellow
see
touch?
the yellow crown,
Yeah,
the yellow
yeah,
small second?
yeah.
That's the little
and it
twist.
really works well, I think, together. So, okay, it's in the artistic craft. I guess it's mainly to do with indeed how they faceted this dial. I mean, how they
Working
did,
with precious stones.
yeah, and
That's
to make
not
it
easy.
as polished and pure as possible. I think it's like. There's like a mirror polish type of dimension with the stone, and it must have been kind of complicated.
Yeah. And don't forget the aspect of selecting the stones.
Yeah.
We mostly forget it for jewelry, for other natural material. The selection of the stones, working on the stones, and using them to be applied in the watch movement. This is also a process. We never speak about it, but it's part of the artistic craft.
That is true. That is very true. Next piece from Chopard with the LUC Quattro Spirit 25 Year of the Dragon, because we're in the year of the dragon. So the Quattro was actually the first movement by LUC some 25 years ago, and it's a jumping hour mechanism with a central minute hand. But here, obviously, the highlight is on the engraving.
Engraving and the dragon, as you said before, the most powerful sign in Chinese zodiac. Well done, because it's really three-dimensional. It shows you how the engraver follows the shape, but it gives a kind of volume to all the picture.
Yeah.
So that makes it really a piece of art for itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next piece comes from Chopard, from Hermes, excuse me.
Hermes.
Yeah, with the Chorus Stellarum. That sounds good, no? The Arceau Chorus Stellarum. And this is obviously linked with the Day of the Dead.
Memento Mori.
Exactly.
Different cultures, different perception, and here we celebrate that. Just reminds us, you're alive, enjoy your life. Why not? It's a good message. And depicted in this way, it's colorful, it's playful, it's dynamic, because you can, on request, move the horse and the rider on it. So it's just much more than just showing time in an original way. It's a full message behind it.
Absolutely, and it's not a full automaton watch. I mean, you activate the animation yourself. I mean, it's really not once you press it. I mean, you need to constantly press to if you want to see this happening. I mean, but of course, I mean, there's a lot of different craftsmanship involved with this piece besides the actual engraving of the horse's skeleton, if I can say. So like this, I mean, it's a nice piece. You know?
Did you see the articulation of the horse legs? They move really regional. That's fun to see.
Yeah, fun to see indeed. Next piece from Louis Vuitton with the Escale Cabinet of Wonders, Snake's Jungle. I mean, the complete program. And indeed, I mean, you have a big snake in this one. And here what is really quite fascinating is really that the fact that it's really is Bombay. I mean, everything is, there's a lot of volume in there. So, okay, we've seen that before.
You see the shape of the snake, you see the volume, and if you take a look, you see the different craftsmanship technique, because you have different cloisonnés and different ways in a really precise way. I think it's worth to take a look to see this watch here.
And obviously complicated to do. I mean, to get this plique à jour type of enamel that is, you know, is see-through and with the shape. Must be very complicated.
In fact, they're not easy, because you put it in the oven, it melts. And we have to ask them how they do it.
No, that's.
Let's see if they tell us the secret. But don't forget the case, because not only the dial is interesting, the message, the jungle spirit goes over the case, as the case from the side and the bezel. It's also engraved with this kind of leaves, and it looks like a full jungle.
Full jungle, indeed, and no, it's. If you look at with the kind of a loop, this really the body of that snake. I mean, you really see how rounded it is, and no, it's quite spectacular.
We tried that, but it doesn't move. Huh?
Doesn't move this one, not this one, no, unfortunately. But it has a bit of I think, a kind of an Art Deco feel to it. It's nice. I like for instance, how the kind of the logo is looking and things like that. It's different. Okay, next piece from Piaget, and this is something that, I mean, we're in kind of more or less classical Piaget territory with this one, but I mean with a fine execution, and also again coming back with this notion of volume, which is very present in this watch.
What is classical here? Except the round shape, nothing is classical.
No. I'm saying in terms of, you know, from Piaget this is what they're strong at.
For sure. It's modern. Modern classic. You mean it's a legendary piece? You mean?
No, that's what I. It's
absolutely.
like
I agree with this flying tourbillon at one, which requests a completely different construction of the movement, by the way, because normally you have the stem there, but there is a special patent behind it. But we don't speak about patent here. It's the beauty of this dial. I love it, how it's combining the three materials, the malachite, the other green, I think is jade. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it must be jade,
And then the diamond set on the dial, and all that in a kind of geometric way, having this floating, flying tourbillon at one, playing with the indication of hours and minutes. It gives this kind of eternal 8 together. Lovely inspiration, and how they play with the natural colors, as Piaget introduced the colored stone dials. So that's a kind of reminder of this element, and playing with timekeeper like you will do with a beautiful jewel combining natural materials. Beautiful piece of art.
Nice piece of art, indeed. Yeah, no. The how those different material kind of intertwine
Yeah.
between each other. It gives it depth. There's something like constant wave, as if there is some kind of constant movement actually happening there, especially when you start playing around. So next piece from Van Cleef and Arpels, and there we're again in full Van Cleef territory with the story, like you mentioned before, and
Metida.
Yeah, here you have
how
everything.
many techniques they put it in this single watch,
Yeah.
but it's really impressive. Here, as soon as you take a
Exactly.
look, you will discover, like in a jungle, you see the fee, you see the leaves, you see the sun, you see so many things.
There is a lot in, just that is concentrated into this piece.
Did you see these little drops on the upper leaf, this green one? It's transparent because it's a plique à jour enamel.
Yeah.
And these little stones, they are integrated in the plique à jour without any gold ring holding it. No, it's a new idea. They even protected it. It's like a drop on a leaf in the morning.
It
And
must
that's
be so complicated to do.
If I tell you the secret, I have to kill you, so don't ask me. I know how they did it.
Okay,
But
well,
it's patented, it's protected.
yeah.
And that's funny to see how even in the métier d'art, you can protect some ideas to keep your advantage in this field. But by the way, it's just a beautiful creation, which, like you said before, it has a depth, it has a kind of volume, and it tells a story in like a three-dimensional way. Beautiful combination of métier d'art.
So this piece is called Ladies Arpels Jour Enchanté, Enchanted Day, and this is definitely what you get inside this dial. I mean, that's not inside this dial. I mean, this entire timepiece. I mean, it's,
Creation.
But there's indeed a lot of various craftsmanship that have been, I mean, that are involved and integrated in such a piece. All right, now let's talk about astronomy so getting there.
Of time measurement
All right,
on the wrist.
so calendar and astronomy as, I mean, one of the nice, I would say, category of the GPAGO is like this category, and we'll start with Anton Suhanov with his piece called Chronotop. And this piece has a bit of a, how do you say, the very, well, not industrial, it's not the right word, but it's
Geometrical, a puristic, no, we don't find the right word.
No.
It's a kind of mechanical way to show the mechanical brain to depict or to show the weekdays. No, we don't describe it correctly, but it's still fascinating, nevertheless.
Something interesting is that for once, I mean, you see an actual cam, I mean, that is really highlighted on the dial side, which helps indicate the days of the week with this kind of snail feature, and helps you understand, okay, how by moving around it presses this part here, and which must have all the other information that are kind of linked to this. Well, not linked, I mean, it's just
To
like
the dial, linked to the dial system, for sure.
Yeah. So interesting piece. But now we're talking about Frédéric Constant with the slimline perpetual calendar manufacture, designed by our friend Peter Speak. This has also kind of a little bit of a very straightforward approach to it. Open dial. I mean, again, talking about Frédéric Constant, I mean, you're not talking, those are reasonably priced watches for the complications that they offer.
If you consider Perpetual Calendar one of the most prestigious complication watchmaking, offering to this price range, it's really, really a huge effort.
Yeah.
And interesting for younger collectors and younger generation, because it shows you a prestigious complication, but you see also the mechanic spirit behind it. Through, like you said, through the open work dial, it expresses this mechanic spirit. Lovely, lovely done. And even here, the counter, like you mentioned before with the chronograph, even here the counter are quite generous. They can be wrote quite well. It's quite visible. Lovely.
All right. Next piece. Now we're going into like, I mean, hardcore mechanics there. This piece from H. Moser, the Endeavour Chinese calendar. If you look at it like this, you say, okay, oh, no, okay, nice piece. But the complexity behind this piece is absolutely insane.
That was the challenge. That's why there are not so many on the market showing a Chinese calendar in a mechanical wristwatch. It's globally rare, and showing it like this with this kind of precision, even more rare. I will even say unique.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it combines obviously. I mean, it's not only showing the Chinese calendar, but you also have our regular
Gregorian calendar, right?
Exactly.
Additionally to the lunar calendar, on the left side you have the lunar month, and the right side you have the lunar day indication. But as I said, combined with the Gregorian, that's the additional challenge in a watch like this. And finally, it has to look like something beautiful, as it is.
Yeah,
it's quite curious. It attracts the eyes of your neighbor. It's a talking piece.
It definitely is. It's a talking piece, but it's, I would say, for, I mean, refined people. I mean, it's not in your face. You know, it's
sure.
Yeah, it's
I mean, talking piece, but if you have to explain it, you have to be able to explain it. That's the point.
Exactly. No, it's extremely complex. All right, talking about very complex. Well, now we're going for something that is quite crazy.
Let's take an hour.
All right, we could definitely indeed talk about this piece for quite a while. It was one of the highlights of the Watches and Wonder this year. From IWC, I guess you guys guessed it, with the Portuguese Eternal calendar. Simple as that.
I love how you underline Eternal calendar.
Well, I mean, they're not that far from it.
True.
All right,
True.
so
what does it do?
Yeah, have a go. Please yourself.
It's already quite strongly recognizable. It's a Portuguese. But over that, we have to jump in the complication.
Yeah.
To make it short, it's extremely precise in the calculation. That means, as you know, a perpetual calendar shows the different lengths of a single month, 30, 31. It shows the exception once a year, and then it shows the exception every 4 years, the leap year. But our Gregorian calendar has a limit. It means in 76 years, it will not consider, we don't have to do the leap year. This one considers it. But there are other watches doing that. But this does even more. It recognizes every 100 years until 2400, and it recognizes correctly. And that continues. So this perpetual calendar is programmed correctly until 3999. And then we just have to click and it's reprogrammed for the next 4000.
I might not be there at that moment.
You never know. But that's not all. Yeah. It has a second record. And this is even more impressive because we have known a precise moon phase from an independent brand in the Swiss-German parts, having a moon with accuracy of 1 day error after 2,060 years. That was a world record, but this watch beats it because this watch has a moon which has a discrepancy between the moon in the sky and the moon on the watch after 45 million years. So that's really interesting, and I'm waiting the moment where I can see that, but I'm not sure I'm here in 45 million years.
Perhaps
too.
not, yeah. But yeah, no, it's quite a feat that has been achieved by those engineers over there, because there you need engineers and the processing powers that goes with it.
Quantum computer calculating the formula to find with which gears, which T's quantity can you achieve this precision. And they made a lot of calculation to find it out, but they found it out, and that's a really incredible record. Double record in a single watch.
Yeah, and I mean, visually it's quite pleasing also, I think, they've achieved, but I mean, with all this inside, you can imagine that it's not 32 millimeter, of course,
no.
But nonetheless, it stays totally wearable. And
it's a Portuguese, it's a IWC. We are used to have this size, but the dial, it's readable, clear. I think it's a good exercise, technically wise, but also aesthetically wise.
Yeah, no, I quite like the kind of those transparent sapphire sub-dials, which just it works well. I have to admit. But now, okay, let's talk a little bit kind of on the opposite, I would say.
Coming back to reasonable aesthetic.
With the Laurent Ferrier Classic Moon Silver. This piece is personally I find very beautiful. I mean, it's very elegant. It has all the codes of, I mean, traditional watchmaking. It's also a precise moon, by the way, but it's there's something just. Yeah, just transpires elegancy, I would say. It's and one of the thing that is quite interesting is that you don't see that often is regarding the aperture for the day and month of indication, because you have this kind of window which comes with some kind of like a little slope with it, and it's actually, it may sound very silly, but it's actually something that you don't see that often. I mean, and it brings something. It actually absolutely works.
I heard someone telling, I don't like this kind of dialing in the window, and in my opinion, it's exactly what I love of this watch, because normally you have a window which is sometimes even deep, you don't see the number correctly, but with this little trick, it makes it much more sophisticated, more elegant, and much more visible. I love it.
Yeah.
Additionally to the hand shape, which is one of the signatures of the brand, the case softly shaped. I love this collection because it's so smooth. It spreads out this classic, puristic approach in watchmaking. And now this year, adding the double moon phase, it gives a little touch of color, matching correctly the graduation. But it's just a beautiful watch. It's a sensitive watch.
And indeed, and I like regarding the indexes, the use of the Roman numerals, but sometimes they're kind of could be a bit bulky in a certain way. And here it's just very,
Tiny,
again,
elegant,
very refined. It's like you don't even actually see the
Roman numerals.
This just fits in very, very nicely.
Don't forget to mention the backside, because the movement, it's a little bit too covered, because the movement it's covered by a big bridge, but the finishes, the decoration are so elegant, matching perfectly the front side.
Absolutely. So final piece in this astronomy category, it comes from Parmigiani with the Tonda PF Hijiri perpetual calendar, another type of calendar.
Oh, now I'm wondering how to explain the rhythm and the cycles of the Hijri calendar, compare with the Gregorian and the No, it's a joke. But interesting, because like the Chinese one, the Hijri calendar, it's also complex, because we have some other rhythm, some other evolution to calculate, and showing it like this with these big counters, not just in the center, small, tiny, but big counters. And look at the color. The color, it's really strange, because it's not a bright green, it's not a dark green, it's just something in between, a beautiful color matching perfectly the standard steel color, which gives it's recognizable. It's a different calendar than the Gregorian calendar.
Definitely, and coming indeed, just talking about the color, it has. When you play around, it's small variations in the hue that is quite it's strange. I mean, it's a very interesting, very
and with
original.
the pattern of the gear shape, probably it plays even differently depending on the quality of the light. If it's a daylight or inside yellow light, could be interesting to play with this version. But let's come back to the Hijri calendar. Don't forget, there are many people on this world, on this globe, which thinks or calculate with this calendar, at least not for business, but for their own culture. So interesting to see how this kind of complication can be evolved and can be more common, perhaps in the future.
Absolutely. So I think we're through the various categories that we wanted to cover. With, like I said, just checking, but no, we went.
We
through,
made a lot of description already. And time passed quite fast, but we could speak much more for every single of this watch, right?
Of course. So it was just like, GPG, there are other categories. I guess some of you guys probably would have liked that we talked about the mechanical exception category, because this is kind of the everybody, it's like the muscle type of category. But we made this choice. So it's going to be interesting who's going to win. Again, we are a member of the jury. We don't say anything. We've tried to be as objective as possible.
We cannot, because you swore. Don't share any comments,
Yeah.
any result before the official.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
But we haven't yet met all the other. I mean, the jury session is about to happen in a few days from now.
Yeah, and you will see the process, the procedure. It's really strict. It's really to make an objective choice, and every person should keep it for itself. There is no way to I don't want to say cheat, but it's an interesting process how it keeps an objective opinion of all the 30 jury members combined with the something like 900 academy members.
Exactly.
So now we have more and more people judging,
Yeah.
and I'm also curious to see how the audience will vote. Do you have an idea? Do you have a way to know how they vote?
I don't know, but I mean, don't hesitate to express yourself about what are your favorite pieces and why they should win. That's always interesting to have your feedback. And coming back just on the GPHG itself and how it works, I mean, just a few days back, we had here Mr. Raymond Loretan, who's the president of the GPHG Foundation, who got interviewed with our colleague Lisa. They did a podcast about coming back on again on a little bit on this history of the GPHG, its evolution, and precisely of how things are working there. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, I mean, again, don't hesitate to check it out. So, well, thank you for being with us for such a long time. I hope you enjoyed it. And for those, I mean, you know that these watchers, they go on some kind of world tour before.
They already went.
Yeah, they already
to
went, exactly.
Vietnam, to Hong Kong, and New York.
To the US.
And they will be soon in Bucharest, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Look in the program on the GPHG website. You will see when and where they will be exhibited.
But indeed, I mean, if you guys are in the vicinity of those exhibitions, it's a really nice way of getting your hands on some of these pieces because it's not every day that you can have that multiple brands being showcased in front of you. And yes, with the GPHG, not every brand is participating. That's up to them. You know, that's always been like that. So even though the Academy members now they can make suggestions of watches that should be, but it's up to the brand finally to say if they want or not. Nonetheless, I mean, we still have quite a few brands that are there. On the personal level, I have to say that when on the first selection as an Academy member, to be honest, there were quite a lot of brands I didn't quite know about, to be honest.
More and more, because people understand it's a really a way to be present in the watch industry if you're participating. And some brands, as you said, they're not participating. It's a pity, but it's their choice. Nevertheless, I'm thinking it should not be a competition. Should be celebrating fine watchmaking and not be interpreted as a competition. We are working for that.
Yeah.
Well,
and when you say fine watchmaking, is watchmaking in general, because I mean, you have the Petite Aiguille, you have the Challenge Prize also, and so it's obviously, I mean, yeah, most of the pieces that we've talked about are probably not that cheap to buy and not for everyone pocket, but there are nonetheless some cheaper, I mean more reasonable options that are also taken into consideration. And within the same category, sometimes you do also have quite a big gap in terms of prices between these watches. So it's kind of difficult also to take that into consideration. But in a certain way, I think it should. You know, it's I think kind of the commercial aspect of the piece based on its price positioning should count also.
That's why there are the two first category covering prices until maximum, if I'm not mistaken, 2,000 or 3,000, the Petite Aiguille or Challenge. So these two categories attracts more and more brands. These are those you don't know, even me, by the way, but it's interesting. It let me discover these brands. And by the way, it brings also brands not only from Switzerland, from other countries. That shows how the Grand Prix de l'Horlogerie is really open to the world. Different categories, different cultures, and that's fine like this.
Absolutely. So, I mean, today we're gonna go for the Geneva venue of this exhibition.
Right.
It's kind of the inauguration, so we're gonna probably meet many people, some friends from the industry. And the GPHG itself will be held, obviously, here in Geneva on Wednesday, the 13th of November, and we'll know all about that. And just again, as a reminder, so we're talking about categories, but then the ultimate prize, the Aiguille d'Or, is not a category, okay? It's just what jury members will think is simply the best watch of the year.
The prize of all prizes,
Yeah.
over every category, absolutely. And then there are some special prizes also, and
That's
don't forget them.
Yeah. Yeah, there is some like innovation prize. There is sometimes a jury special prize that can be handed to different people. Last year it was great to see Sven Anderson and Mr. Calabrese, a good friend Calabrese, get some kind of recognition for what they have done for the AHCI. And so those are also a kind of nice little prize. And this year I think there's the introduction of a new type of prize, but we don't know if it's going to be handed or not. It's kind of a sustainability prize. And obviously, I can already hear some of you guys saying, "Oh yeah, off they go." I mean,
That's complex. Believe me, it's a really complex topic. That's why we suggested to do it. We are not sure to deliver this prize. Let's see, but we have to.
But you have
it.
to do it. I mean, it's being coherent. I mean, it's just in the way things go, and.
It's a signal. It's a message. It's part of the game. That's why we want to try. Let's see what is the result.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to be in for surprises and especially, hopefully, a lot of fun. Anyhow, so this is finally it, I think. Apart if you have a message to
That's it.
say. All right.
Thank you very much. It was
Gianfranco, it was a pleasure having you here. And well, see you guys soon. And as we say, I mean, you know the drill.
It's
Viva Watchmaking! There we go. Bye, guys.
Bye.